My 5-year plan got very much thrown out the window earlier this year. How are you finding being single? To be honest, oh my gosh, and like low-key unwanted. How are you adapting to having roommates? I know how to say this word. I've practiced it so many times. I think the most important thing, so this next question is, today we are doing a Q&A. I definitely think people submitting their questions for a Q&A is one of my favorite aspects of YouTube because it really gives me a sense of who is like watching these videos and what you're interested in. I think I can really start to map the different interests as my life changes and the questions in the Q&A changes as well. We're going to get through a bunch of different topics such as living abroad, creativity and relationships. So let's dive in to the first group of questions. This group of questions is all about living abroad. I thought I would kick it off with this one because whilst a very valid question, I think my answer is quite telling of my life right now. What is your 5-year plan? Right now, it is a 2-month plan max. So just wanted to start with that one to set the scene, and also for anyone else who maybe their 5-year plan has been thrown out the window this year, know that you are not alone and it's okay to take it month by month. It's actually been really exhilarating to take life month by month. For example, I always knew I was going to move to London. That was kind of, I guess, the 5-year plan in my 20s, and then it was things like potentially marriage and kids. That was my 5-year plan in my late 20s, and now it is a 1-month plan. I don't know where I'm going to be living in 1 month's time. So yeah, don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing, but I'm also really enjoying that. And you know, like I said with the titles of these videos, we be starting over at 30, truly. What are things you're willing to splurge on, and what are you trying to save money on when living overseas? Okay, splurge is definitely travel and lived experiences, like really wanting to go to a restaurant in Modena. It was really overpriced. Obviously I had to fly there. Like a lot went into making that happen, but that experience was totally worth it because it's like when you're living here and so close to experiences that especially in Australia we were so far from, it is so fun to go all in on those. And then in terms of saving, one thing that I really love is really beautiful designer furniture and art. Those are items that I feel at this stage I am not spending money on because yeah, I don't know where I'm living next and I don't know what I'm doing next either. But hopefully in time I'll get to buy those pieces eventually when the time is right. So this next question is definitely my most asked. Do you see yourself moving back to Australia or another country anytime in the near future? Clearly see that this is an important question for the channel. And how do I answer this? So long term, Australia is my home, but for now, all I have to say is stay tuned for the next few videos and you'll find out soon what my plans are. Does London feel like home for you now? Are you settled here? Yes, it does feel like home. That said, it feels like a home. And on that topic, how long after moving to London did you start to feel settled rather than finding your feet? For me, it was definitely a year. My first year, I was experiencing so many things for the first time, and everything is kind of like overstimulated and exciting and overwhelming. Like even going to the grocery store and having to navigate the brands is in itself its own learning curve. Actually, this was quite funny the other day. My friend and I, we were in France together. She lives in Australia, I live here. We were enjoying the French supermarkets and having giggles over everything that we saw there. And then weirdly, there was this store that was like a British supermarket in this random small town in the south of France. And so we thought it would be funny to go in there as well. And everything to me looked so normal. I was like, oh, like this all just looks like groceries. I was like, why did they bother opening a Tesco in the south of France? How odd. But then my friend, who is obviously not living in the UK, was like, no, everything here looks weird and novelty to me. So that's when it really clicked to me that this is now my norm, that what I'm seeing in the supermarket is normal and not overwhelming. So when you start looking at the grocery store and you start to see the items on the shelves and it doesn't feel perplexing or weird or like you're having to navigate it, maybe that means you've settled. I don't know, maybe that could be a benchmark. But in terms of how long it took for me, it was definitely a year. Let's do some questions about London life. How do you motivate yourself to do things and get out or be social when it gets dark and cold so early? I'm coming up to my 4th London winter, and to be frank, I'm over it. I don't know how people grow up here and live these winters. It is hard and difficult. So the first thing is to be kind to yourself. The second thing is to lean into being cozy. I think that really helped. My attitude was almost to switch the flip in my brain from I have to be social and get out to winter is for hibernating, for being cozy, for getting comfortable, for re-energizing yourself after a really hectic summer period. And it was books like The Little Book of Huga. Oh my gosh. I know how to say this word. I've practiced it so many times. Huga. Guys, I've practiced this word so much. The Little Book of Huga and Wintering were really helpful with changing my perspective about winter, because it is another season to embrace for its own unique aspects. Embrace being home by 6 o'clock, putting a candle on and enjoying a cozy movie and going to bed early and just catching up on your sleep like a bear does during winter as well. What do you most love about living in Hackney? Bonus question, your favorite Hackney pub. I ask this as I lived there for years and your videos remind me of those fun times. Oh, that's so fun. I'm so glad they do that. Okay, so favorite pub in Hackney for me is Prince Arthur, E8. That one to me is super small and I like the interiors. I love the staff who work there. They're always so friendly and the food is actually really good as well. I've never really thought about why Hackney in particular. I don't know. This is also where my mum was born. She was born in East London. So I don't know, it just feels like the place I was meant to be. Also, when I moved here, everyone said I should move to Hackney. I think it is a very creative and vibrant and energetic area. I love that my friends all live here too, and we can all be in the borough and connect really easily. I love that there are really good parks here. What are your most loved places in London to be cozy? I would say the Dog and Bell in Deptford is one of my favorites. Also, I've enjoyed being cozy at the Barring too, because they have a little open fireplace, which is really sweet. Pretty much anywhere with an open fireplace is where you're gonna get cozy in London. Now I have a chunk of questions about relationships. My friend has also just gone through a breakup. So sorry you're going through one too. What's the best / most helpful ways friends have supported you in this time? Okay, the fact that you're even asking this question is so nice and absolutely warms my heart. I feel like already you're probably being super helpful for your friend because you're even asking this question. So the most helpful things my friends did were to stay in constant contact with me. So always sending me texts and then actually following through with plans. I think it's so easy to text someone, but to actually show up and be there for them is a very different thing. So my friends who literally came over to my house and they would cook me meals or invite me over for dinner, those things really helped because at that stage I was feeling super vulnerable, super raw, and like low-key unwanted. Like a breakup is a rejection. You as a friend can help that person feel wanted by actually showing up for them. And I think you can't hang out with someone after a breakup. Like obviously if they really want their own space, then you should respect that. But also because someone might be feeling unloved or even unlovable, it's important to kind of just like show up consistently just to remind them they are wanted. Maybe not by the person they were in a relationship with anymore, but by so many other people that they have that maybe they can't see in that moment. And then for at least 1, 2, or 3 weekends directly after a breakup, I would say my friends hanging out with me every single day of the weekend from Friday to Sunday was a lifesaver. Those are the days where you start to be like, ooh, that person really isn't in my life anymore to watch a movie with on Friday night, and it starts to feel very vulnerable. So make plans with your friend Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. Be there, especially in those first few weekends after the breakup. Also give them lots of hugs, because physical touch is something that I think when you're in a relationship you get access to quite a lot, and then after a relationship you have less of. And then finally, I learned in therapy that you can just ask people what they need from you instead of trying to guess. You can ask them like, hey, do you just want to like vent and just say everything you hate about that person? I'll never hold it against you. Or hey, do you want to like problem solve and we can talk through what you're going through and then figure out some solutions? But yeah, so kind of you to ask this question. I think you're a really good friend. How are you finding being single? Any tips for combating loneliness after the end of a relationship? You know what? I'm actually finding it better than I thought. I'm really surprised by my resilience, if I do say so myself. I am actually like really optimistic and hopeful for my future, and I'm feeling really light and excited by the possibilities, which I didn't expect to be. I thought I would be weighed down by it and feeling really heavy over this. I've also been through therapy for a really long time. Like I've been in therapy for a decade on and off. So I also feel like coming to this point in my life, I just feel like I have all the tools I needed to get through this. And of course I still needed therapy, and I do therapy weekly whilst going through this breakup, but I do feel like I have the resilience, I have the tools, I have the know-how, and I have the hope and optimism that things are going to be for the better in the face of this. So yeah, being single or like on my own at the same time as feeling really light and content, I'm also feeling very uncomfortable, having to sit with very big feelings, having to also accept the role I played in a relationship ending as well. Like that is very uncomfortable. So I guess to follow up on combating loneliness after the end of a relationship, I think it's just to like make plans with friends, making plans for myself, like going to Monet's garden, as well as calling people, FaceTiming them. Don't overthink it, just give them a call. Get hobbies, that helps with loneliness as well, especially if those hobbies involve doing something with other people. I also find going into work helps with loneliness as well. If your work is full of people who love talking all day like mine is, and then also joining clubs like run clubs, there are social chess clubs, things like that. And also just like, yeah, just dream big, go after what you want. I feel like you can't be lonely if you're just chasing what you want. You're chasing the friends you want, or the hobbies you want, or the experiences you want. It's hard to like have time to be lonely when you are just so laser focused on getting out and doing you. The next few questions are all about being in a flat share. How many flatmates do you have? I actually live with 4 other people, which is wild. To be honest, it's 3 too many. How did you find your house share? I found it on Spare Room. Also check out Facebook groups. And then to find this particular house share, I had gone to 3 before finding this one. The first one I did like, I loved the location. The room was really small. It was the same price as this, but half the size. Then the next one I went to, I liked the person and the room, but I didn't like the location. It was just like you'd step out onto a really busy, wild street. And then the third one, once again, honestly liked the roommates, liked the house, but the price was just like, I could afford it, but I was like, did I want to afford it? Did I want to spend that extra cash? And then this one came along, I could afford it, the size of the room is great, the location was like 10 out of 10 what I wanted, but then the number of housemates was not what I wanted, so I definitely compromised on that aspect. I do think with flat shares there is probably always 1 or 2 things you do have to compromise, and you just got to decide which aspect you're willing to compromise on. Oh, and then all of that doesn't take into consideration actually being like selected or chosen to live with someone either. There's like a whole other thing. But what I did learn recently that I hadn't thought of was my friend, she rented a 2-bedroom flat and then she found a housemate to fill the extra room. So I thought that was quite clever. I hadn't thought to do it that way. How are you adapting to having roommates? So this was another very popular question. To be honest, for the most part, it is fine. I have lived with housemates before. I lived in 3 house shares in Sydney. I would say going from being in my own 1-bedroom place to living with multiple people, the biggest adjustment has been accepting different people's levels of cleanliness and having to drastically lower my own. It really makes me practice a lot of patience. I signed a 6-month lease and I'm not going to stay on. So I think for my next place, if I can't get a place on my own, then I will want to live with like maybe 1, max 2 other people and make sure that we're all on the same page about putting the effort in to make it a home. The next category of questions is all about work and creativity. I have a few questions about how I became a design strategist, so I'm going to kindly direct you to a few other videos where I have explained that. So I've got what is strategic design, I'm doing like something like that on the thumbnail, and then also the job about why I quit consulting actually gives my timeline of my career so far, so there's actually a lot of information in that one. Is there a difference between design strategist and strategic designer? Great question. No, there is not. These are just nuanced words. I've always known it as strategic designer, but I'm also seeing design strategist come up a lot more. Where it will differ is the company you're working for or the line of work you do. So you might be like a design strategist in a branding agency, or you might be a design strategist in a physical experience agency like me. And so you'll still be doing the same type of work, it'll just be a different execution that you're working on. So I work on physical retail experiences. Previously, I worked on apps on our phones, and they're the same skills, just different outcomes that I'm producing. Best and worst aspects of your job. Best aspect is working in an actually creative design studio. I have worked as a design strategist in non-creative studios, and the problem there is that they don't value design and creativity, and you're not encouraged to be creative. Other people aren't speaking that creative language either. So you're using all of these business terminologies to try and communicate design things so that you're speaking their language, versus where I'm now, I'm working directly with other designers, so we're all speaking the design language. It feels, personally to me, much easier. It's how I speak, and so I can feel like I can be more myself. Also, working in a creative agency, I think other people are equally interested and excited by art and design. So at lunchtime, sometimes we'll go to a gallery together and see an exhibition, so it all feels very natural and creative and lovely. Worst aspect is maybe, I think, just generally capitalism and like the fact that we exist within these constraints. Like, my job exists because of the structure and the system of capitalism, so therefore we have budgets that we have to deal with. So they're like, our client is being given directives or orders from their bosses because their bosses are telling them what to do, and then all of that trickles down to what we do. A project starts with this big visionary idea, and then something happens within the business that means now they don't want to go down that direction, and it gets like a bit more safe. So yeah, I think it is like that restriction of client needs on creativity, which is why in a video I've talked about before, I have this creative space in YouTube and now jewelry design, because if you rely on your work to be your only creative outlet, I think you're always going to be disappointed because you're going to be limited by your clients' needs. Advice you would give people who just finished uni and are starting their first big girl job. Ooh, I'm excited for you. Congratulations on finishing uni and starting your first job. So I remember starting my first job and feeling completely incompetent, being completely overwhelmed, but hopeful. So my advice is to know that you will not know it all, but to just keep showing up and giving it your best. And I think something we always look out for in juniors are people who are very proactive and have a real strong sense of wanting to learn. And that attitude can oftentimes be more important than the actual skills they have. Particularly in strategy, which is like a problem-solving discipline, we're looking for people who show up time and again to try and figure it out, that they mightn't know the answer, but they're going to do their best to figure it out. I have no creative bone in my body, but really want to explore that side of myself. How would you recommend I start? First of all, I do want to clarify that you do have a creative bone in your body. We all do. They are inherently within us. All they need to do, like you've said, is be unlocked and find it. You just need to practice it the same way you would practice anything else in your life. I think the most important thing is to find the creative thing that works for you right now. And I also want to clarify that there are so many versions of creativity. So coding, for example, is a very creative discipline, but people mightn't think of it as creative because I guess it's like falls under that more computer science aspect. Floristry, dyeing fabrics, like there are so many different things you can do that count as creative, and it's just about finding the thing that piques your interest right now. If you don't know where to get started, I think the best place to start is to think about what you did as a child that you really thought of as fun and creative. So for example, I started YouTube because when I was a kid, I loved filming silly videos with my friends, doing the little transitions and the cuts and making this story come to life. That brought me so much joy as a child, and so that is what I now get to do as an adult. The next thing you can ask yourself is, what do you see others doing that you consider creative that gives you like a pang of jealousy, that makes you think, oh, I wish I could do that? It also doesn't need to be like a jealousy of like superiority. It could be a jealousy of like, oh, I wish I could do that. For example, that was jewelry for me. I was going into these beautiful little boutiques all around East London and trying to find this like heirloom piece for myself. And I was just like, how do they make these? What is the process? And that's honestly how I got into making rings, is because I just wanted to figure it out for myself. Signing up to workshops and tutorials can be really helpful as well. I once signed up to a floristry workshop because I was just like, what's going on here with floristry? Like, how do I create a really nice bouquet? Just find something that piques your interest enough and just start obsessing it. Or find something you wish you had and make it for yourself. Like if you really wanted a crocheted scarf and you were gonna go buy it, go make it for yourself. And that's a way to get into something creative as well, is make it really practical. I saw you make art on large canvas. How do you get the idea for what you want on it? Isn't it intimidating? Oof, great question. I actually love how many compliments I get for this, because whilst I'm proud of it, it was super simple, like crazy simple. This is just inspired by Matisse. He created these cutouts of these weird odd shapes that are just stunning. And essentially I just Googled Matisse cutouts and then took those cutouts as inspiration and created those shapes on the canvas and then painted them in block color. This is really nicely covered in the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I believe I actually made a video about this, so I'll link that here. This is all about using art as inspiration and the fact that that is okay, because throughout history everything is cyclical and no art is original. If we're talking about your own personal creative practice and just having fun and getting creative at home, then I would say go out of your way, find something you like. Once you find something that you like, try to recreate it. Just for yourself, not to sell. We're not ripping off here, we're not copywriting. We're just doing it for you to practice and play. And we're using that because you're inspired by that thing you see, and therefore you're more motivated to create your own version of it. You're going to naturally put your own flair and flavor and taste onto something. For example, like with this piece, I used the shapes from Matisse cutouts, but once I'd started to make a few inspired by his shapes, I naturally got into the flow and rhythm and got my own shapes out of it. So that is my advice. Go out into the world, find what you like, and then use it as inspiration to start making something and practice. Oh, and watch my video about Steal Like an Artist because I'd appreciate the views. I also have a lot of questions about jewelry, but I fear this Q&A is getting too long, and I want to scatter those out over the next few vlogs because that is something I'm really enjoying, and I really appreciate that other people are interested in it as well, because this is probably the next thing I've cared about as much as YouTube in my life. I feel like I've had my career, I started doing YouTube, and now I am enjoying and loving rings as much as that. So I want to focus on that more and give it more attention. But because I work full time and then I do YouTube outside of work, I feel like unless I add the jewelry to the YouTube, it's hard to find time to also do the jewelry. The next section is all about travel. What is an absolute dream travel destination for you? One of those like villas or like bungalows over the water, like in the Maldives or something like that. I'm a water baby, so to be able to wake up and jump into the water, that to me is like just like the most dreamy vacation ever. What is top of your travel wish list? Always at the top of my travel wish list is a hike. I want to hike annually if I can. I am putting Yosemite and Patagonia on the top of my wish list. Those are two places I haven't yet done. What has been your favorite holiday this year? That's such a fun question as well. Okay, all of them. They all have different reasons for being my most favorite and fun holidays. For example, when I went to Santorini, I know it's so touristy, but also at the same time, I was so cognizant of how beautiful it is. Like, it is touristy for a reason. Walking around there is just like so beautiful, and it was really special to share that with my mum because she loves the Greek islands too. And then I also went to Corfu with my girlfriends, and that was just like girlhood personified. It was the most lovely week with them. There were 6 of us in total. We had so much fun. It was so silly and so light. Oh, but then of course Tokyo. I've been to Tokyo, this is my second trip, and I plan to go again and again and again. I feel you can go every time and discover something new. Japan is so good. Also, please watch my Tokyo vlog if you haven't already because it really helps the channel. The final chunk of questions are questions that didn't fall into any category, so we're calling it miscellaneous. On a more superficial tone, where do you shop? Another person said, loved your clothes I own video. Did you add anything else? So thank you for watching clothes I own video. For anyone who does want to know what brands I wear, I've put all of that in that video. Other brands I've added since is a lot of Beams Japan clothes, a vintage Courage jacket that I got in France when I was in Givoni, and then also the Mulberry Bayswater bag. I've also added a pair of Mr. shoes, and then also Sawatake, which is very androgynous clothing that I'm loving. Would love to see you give recommendations on your top 5 pieces of clothes, bag, or jewelry. Oh, such a good question, and this is a hard one. Top 5, okay, obviously my rings have to be one of my favorite parts of my jewelry. I personally love them because A, I made them, but B, they are super chunky and weighty, like they've got a real sense of weight behind them, and they always feel like power pieces when I go out and about. I feel like if I'm just wearing a plain outfit but I have all of this silver on my fingers, I just feel so done up. The other things that are my recommendations for top 5 pieces are a power shoe. I already had a really high chunky Doc Marten, but I recently got an even higher and chunkier Mr. shoe, and whenever I walk around with that extra height, I always feel like I'm stomping the ground and I'm really powerful. I also think a solid coat is necessary, not only for aesthetics, but obviously for warmth. When I was using my Australian coats here for my first winter, they were not living up to the weather here. So I invested in a Ganni one, a Toast coat, secondhand on Vinted, and an Acne Studios puffer, secondhand on Vinted, because those ones be very expensive brand new. And all of those really elevate my wardrobe, but also keep me mad warm. So I think having a super warm coat is very important. Oh, at the moment, I'm loving sheer items, like items that you layer on top of things. So like I have this sheer dress, and then I also have a sheer shirt, and I just layer it on top of other things, and I feel like they're really versatile and they kind of add another element or dimension to the outfit. My fifth one would be a power bag as well. At the moment, it's the new, my new Mulberry Bayswater bag, and this is a bit of like a running joke at our work because 4 of us now have this bag and we are all obsessed with the Bayswater bag. We're really seeing this resurgence of it and we feel like the trend is hyping up quite a lot. Wow, I feel like all of those pieces were about power. What's up with that? I think we need to deep that. Yeah, I think you want to like feel strong, and like what you're wearing and what you're putting on your body and your clothes makes you feel like you can move through the world and feel that sense of independence, autonomy, strength. I think it's okay that all those things were about power. I'm not trying to take power from other people, I'm trying to feel power and powerful within myself. And I feel like fashion, jewelry, bags, clothes, shoes do all of those things. What are your long-term fitness, running, activity, health goals, if any? I'm continuing my running. I love running. I also want to use it to meet people. So I want to join different run clubs and make friends that way. And I think by running, yeah, you get out into the physical world and you meet people. And then I also want to continue my Pilates. After I had an injury with my lower back and all I could do was Pilates, it made me realize that Pilates is actually like so important just for our mobility, just because you want to keep all the bits moving, all the joints jointing, and you want to stay, yeah, fit and healthy, right? Because I always want to be able to walk and hike and go on adventures. Thank you so much for submitting a question and staying till the end to hear all of my answers. I really appreciate this community and I'm so glad you're here. Every time I get a question and I get to learn more about what you're interested in, it really helps me understand who's on the other side of these videos. So thank you for being here and thank you for all of your kindness and joy, and I hope you have a lovely day or evening wherever you are.